Well, we are back, you guys. Happy Friday. It's actually Thursday evening right now, but Vicky's day off today, so she is filming behind the camera for the newsletter this week. So this is part 2 and conclusion of finishing up this sign.
We may get some this time of evening as the dogs come alive and barking and go crazy.
We've got wildlife going on outside right now. Dogs running by, and you may hear all kinds of funny sounds. But I'm going to fire up the router here in a minute, so you probably won't hear much beyond that. Okay, so last week, if you remember, I used the profile bit and the 60-degree bit on these letters. Yeah, there's our dog.
Brutus.
There's our dog Magnum. So I used the 60-degree and the profile bit on this lettering. And now I'm going to use the SC50 on this real fine flowery design. And then I'll use the profile and the 90 on that dark line on the outside, if all goes as I planned. So hope everybody's having a good week. And we got lots of great things going on, but let's stop talking and get into routing here. That's why you were here, is to see some router work. Dog, you stay outside. Okay, so let's see. I am going to put my cheaters on. Now, the bit that I am using here is the SC50. So hopefully, babe, you can get in on that. This is a single flute. They call it the carving liner bit. You don't go too deep with this thing. 330 seconds is what they rate it at. If you go any more than that, especially on hardwoods, the tip's liable to break off. I think I've sharpened this a couple times, but I'm actually a little bit too deep on that right now. I'm going to back that off a little bit. So I'm using this for my super fine detail on those little flowers and stuff there. So let's get into this. Let's see.
You got the cord in front.
Oh, yep. Thank you. Almost messed that up. You guys got to be able to see what I'm doing here. Here we go. I'm going to shut this off just for a second so I can kind of explain what I'm doing there. You guys saw that I had the router base, well maybe you saw, I had the router base all the way down on the board when I was doing these letters here, or these petals on the outside. But then I kind of backed it off and I held the router base. I didn't want to go that full depth, so rather than completely readjusting the depth on the router, I just held it up a little bit because I knew that if I went too deep on these, then I might lose those little dots. And I'm doing kind of the same thing here. So if you guys really kind of watch close, you'll notice that I'm not full depth, and I probably will start off here at kind of partial depth, and by the time I reach out here, I'll be full depth. So kind of keep an eye on the base, guys, and you'll kind of see how I maneuver that. Alright guys, so you can kind of see how I went about doing that. Let's pull some of these petals off and see what those little flowers. Looks like a couple of those chipped out there, and that's, unfortunately, that's just part of the game when you're, especially when you got vertical grain. And this, you could see the difference in grain between this board here and this piece here. See how that is so much grainier? That's just going to be tend to be somewhat chippy, and that's just part of the deal. All right, so and then let me pull this one off too. That vinyl didn't quite stay together there. I don't know if I lost any of those little dots in there. Look like those all pretty much held up there. And let's see what this one looks like. So I think what I'm going to do, guys, is I kind of did 3 of those patterns. The rest of the sign is just a series of that same pattern. Looks like I did lose, yeah, it looks like I lost one that chipped out there. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the camera off, and then I'll do the rest of these patterns, and then I'll come back and we'll do the profile, which will be that black line, and then on the outside of that we'll do that 90 degrees. So we'll be back with you in just a second while I get all these other little flower patterns taken care of. Be right back. Alright guys, so we're back. I got all of the detail done with the SC50, all the little scrolls and flowers and stuff. I got all that done. So now this heavy line here, I'm going to go back with my profile bit, which is the one I used for the inside of these letters, not the background, but the fine line on the inside of those letters. I'm going to go back with that profile bit, which is right here, and I'm going to do that dark line, and then we'll go back. And then, what's the matter?
Bug.
Oh, we got bugs. Yeah, we got bugs coming in the door since it's dark outside now. So I'm going to go to my cheaters here, and then we will get this profile line taken care of here. Are you with me, babe?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well.
All right.
Bugs.
Here we go. That cord in the way? Just this piece here. You okay? Keep swatting bugs? Okay, guys. So I think we're gonna knock off for tonight. We'll finish this up in the morning. We'll get out here and get this thing finished up in the morning. The bugs are starting to
Attack.
attack. Yeah, the desert comes alive at night. So we will be we'll be back when it's daylight out in the morning, which will be just a second or two for you guys. So we'll see you in the morning, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. Okay, so we did almost all of the carving last night when the bugs were starting to swarm. But it's nice and early on Friday morning, nice and beautiful desert morning. So we are going to take the 90-degree V-groove. That's that one. And you guys that know our stuff kind of know what that bit looks like. It's a 90-degree V-groove, 2 fluted. And we're just going to basically, you got that? Okay. We're just going to basically, this dark line around here, we're just going to make that a little bit fatter line. And then the carving will pretty much be done. Then we'll go into the next scene, taking that vinyl off and getting that taken care of. So let me get my cheaters on here and put my hat down. Let's fire up this router and get this thing done. Let's see what it looks like. All right. By the way, after this is all done, are you going to color those flowers?
We'll see.
I think that should be a question for the audience.
Okay.
Audience, do you think Vicky should paint these flowers?
All right.
I think that's a great question.
Turn it around. Turn your router around.
Turn my router around, yes. Here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, a couple things I want to go over. first of all, just in case you guys didn't notice, this is my bigger router, the 618, and I didn't use, because it's taken off a lot more material, I didn't use the little palm router, the 611. I used the bigger one, the 618, and that's my general rule is if I'm taking out a lot more wood, I want to use the bigger router. It handles it better. That's the first thing. Second thing is when you're carving through paper and or vinyl, vinyl's actually this poly, whatever Dad calls it, I call it vinyl. It's a little bit thicker and it will kind of bunch up like that, so you really kind of have to pay attention to where you're at and what your router is actually riding on. So that was that's pretty much that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shut the camera off, come back on, and then we're going to get this vinyl off here, and then we'll go into our spraying operation. So we'll be right back. Okay, so here we go. We're going to take this vinyl off. Now I know there's lots of you out there that use mineral spirits and go on top of this and take it off that way. If you're using paper, that might be a better way to go, but let me show you how I go about doing this. And I've talked about this before. I use a heat gun, and the heat gun works. The one thing I do really like about the vinyl is it tends to stay together. It doesn't come off in a billion little tiny pieces. So mineral spirits may work better for that, but I don't really like my boards to have any liquid on them, mineral spirits, paint thinner, anything like that. I just don't, I don't like to take that chance. So here's, let me show you what I do. So I start up my heat gun. It gets warm pretty fast.
Where are you going to start?
Oh, am I off scene here?
No, I just want to put the camera.
So the neat thing, like I say, the neat thing about this vinyl is it comes off pretty darn easy from a standpoint of not a billion little pieces. Now, for little tiny pieces, here, let me show you what I do. I just take my pocket knife and my little blade, and a lot of times those little tiny pieces in there, they just kind of scrape right off. And this heat gun will kind of just loosen that stuff up. So the little pieces, the heat gun gets hot on your hand too, by the way. So that's one thing you kind of have to worry about. So this same operation I think would work probably not quite as fast or as well with paper, but I know it does work with paper because I've done it before. I just don't use paper as much anymore since I got the vinyl. But now all these little pieces that are left like that, I just use my little blade, and rather than try and take them off each individually, they come off pretty fast with that blade. So now I'll just heat this up a little bit more. I'll just do a little bit more of this on camera, guys, so I'm not taking up a whole lot of time. When you heat it up, it just makes it come off a little bit easier. I think you guys kind of get the idea. I'm just going to go ahead and take the rest of this off camera, and we'll be right back and we'll get into the next operation. Be right back. Alright, you guys, we are back. So we got a little bit of a change of plans, and this happens, and so I thought this might be a learning experience for you guys. It always, it's one of those deals that you don't like to happen, but it does. So let me show you a couple things here. What I did was I rounded the corners on this like I normally do, and then I put my 45-degree chamfer, which that router is over there. But anyway, I just put my regular 45-degree chamfer, and I noticed a couple things. One of the disadvantages of this vertical grain running this way is so many different boards, so many places that could chip out. One thing that happened is right here on this pedal. Either I nicked it with my my 90 degree when I went by, which I don't know, it's possible that I did, but it chipped out. And if you look at the grain on this particular piece, it's that's one thing about redwood, is that sometimes those grains are really chippy. So I have to repair that. I'm just going to kind of remold that with my SC50. So let's do that first. Let me get that out of the way and oops, turn this the right way. So I'm using that original SC50 that I did all the really fine details on the vines and the pedals and stuff. So let me see how this is going to work. All right. So, are you on me, babe?
As close as I can get.
Okay. Well, as long as it's not fuzzy. Chip out on me. Yeah, just lost that piece, just chipped out. Yeah. That's as good as we're going to get. On that pedal right there, that's probably our best option.
Can you hold it up?
Yeah. Were you able to see the way it chipped out?
No.
So what I tried to do, guys, is round that off. And as I did, it caught a grain and it chipped out more. So that's as good as pedal as we're going to get on that one. That's just, that's the kind of the nature of the beast sometimes. Sometimes stuff happens. So I'm as far as I can on that. Another issue that we had was over here in between the pedal and this leaf. That was one piece that chipped out as well. There are other places where it didn't chip out. Let me get my pointer. My big fat sausage fingers aren't in the way. So this is the same thing here. Is in between the flower and the pedal. It didn't chip out, but here it did. I don't think that's going to be that big a deal.
Excuse me.
I'm going to leave that the way it is. Bless you. Now, here's the big one down here. When I was doing my 45-degree chamfer, as I came along here, bing, 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 those all chipped out. We got a little bit of a chip out there. That one's not too bad. I really don't have to do anything on that one. That one's going to sand out. When I sand off, I can sand that one out. But we have a major chip out there, and we have another one down here. Not quite as bad as that one, but neither one of those will sand out. So I have two choices on what I do to repair, and I'm going to show you both of them. I'm going to pick one over the other. What I would do sometimes, and I'll actually demonstrate on this one, it'll be a little bit easier. What I would do in this particular case is, and the reason I'm doing this is because if I sprayed this black just the way it is, then that would be a big black streak. So I have to, I'm going to tape that off, and I'm going to push that masking tape down in that groove. And then with my knife, I'll trim that off. And that actually, I have to trim that back a little bit more. Because I want to protect that piece right there from getting black in it. So that's where I have to really be careful. Now that's not the way I'm going to actually repair it, but I want you guys to see how I would go about that if I decided to do it that way. What I'm going to do in this particular case with both of these is I'm just going to putty them. because I definitely cannot have that coming up black. If this was the only one, I probably would just do the masking tape thing, and I might be able to sand most of that out, but it still is pretty deep. So I think my best option is to putty those. So now I'm going to pick the darkest one that I have, which is the walnut flavor. And we're going to just throw some putty in there. Oh, that's almost too hard. Maybe I can get down to some looser stuff. Oh yeah, there's the loose stuff down there. So I got to mix this up. It had a real hard on top, and the soft stuff is down below. So I'm going to mix that up a little bit. Make it a little easier to putty and stick. By the way, and I think I've showed this before, guys, when that stuff gets completely dried out, if it does, say you don't get your cap on quite tight enough, throw a little acetone in there, let it sit for a few hours. It'll soften right back up on you. Don't throw it away. That's what I used to do, but it's mostly acetone, so you can just add some acetone to it and it'll soften right back up for you. So here's how I'm going to do that. Am I making your life difficult there, Ben? You're okay? Okay. So then I'll go back. I don't really want to fill that groove. This is part of the joys of wood signs, guys. So that actually is, I think, pretty good fill there. Oh, I should always put your cap back on right away after you take that off. Even just a few seconds of air will start to dry that that acetone out in there. Masking tape. So now that's a pretty good gap in there. Now this, obviously, I can always sand down this surface here, or I can go back with the 45 degree if I need to. I just need to fill those gaps as much as I can, and this stuff's already starting to dry out. So I need to work a little quicker here.
Can't you use your finger?
Huh?
Can't you use your finger?
Yeah, you can. You can absolutely use your finger. But if I use my finger, many times I will use my finger if I'm not on camera, but if I'm on camera, the finger kind of sometimes covers up what it is I'm trying to do. I need a little bit more. And what I'll do is, because this stuff shrinks just slightly, I'll leave it built up. Make sure it's pushed all the way down in there, and then I'll leave it kind of built up. And then I can always sand off the excess. Now I'll go back with my little carving tool and try and get the, and if I need to go back in with my router, and I might need to, that's no big deal. I'll be just pretty much just cutting that dried putty away anyway. So now I'm gonna let that set for an hour or so, and then we'll come back and we'll see what kind of shape it's in. We might have to re-putty it a little bit. I'm not sure. But that's just like I say, that's part of the game. And especially on these kinds of boards. And in the meantime, I'll go through and I'll start taking out some of these high spots. Because when I use the 60 degree V groove on the back here, I want to make sure that I don't have any high spots. So while that's drying, I'll just kind of work my way around the sign and make sure I don't have any real high spots that will come up to be white spots when we go to sand. And that, like I've said many times, that's not super critical, but I like to not have to do too much touch up with a black Sharpie after it's sanded. I'm sure I'll have a few spots, but I'd like to keep that to a minimum if I can. There's another high spot there. Ooh, I need to get that cap back down on there so that doesn't dry out. Alright, you guys, I'm just going to go through here and pick out some high spots and kind of trim some of these high spots down, and then another hour, half hour or an hour, we'll come back and see what that looks like, and then we'll move on. Vicky will be at work by then, but I'll either do it film myself, or I'll have Dad do it. He's just working on some other projects, so I don't want to bug him unless he's caught up on his stuff. So anyway, thanks guys. We'll be you'll see me in about a second or two. We'll be right back. Bye. Okay guys, so it's been several hours since I put that putty on, and I was trying to get out here earlier, but it just didn't work that way. So unfortunately this video is going to be a little bit later on Friday than what I really hoped. But this putty is all dried, and I'm filming here, so the putty is all dried, and I am going to go in with my 90 degree and kind of clean up this groove a little bit, because I want this consistency, because there's some of that putty is in there. So I'm going to set up and go back in with my 90 on that stuff right there and smooth that out, and I think we'll be all right. Then we're ready to spray, so we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So we've got this putty in here that I think is going to be okay, but I need to kind of clean up these lines here. But before I do that, because this is not a smooth surface on top, I'm going to take my just my old sanding block, old rubber sanding block, and I'm just going to kind of touch that there on top, just to make sure that my router base isn't going to get caught on that putty there. So now we'll just see if we can touch that up just a little bit. Hopefully, since I'm filming this and doing it all in one shot, hopefully this will come out all right. So I apologize if my camera work isn't as good as if I was behind the camera. Yeah, not to say that that's that good, but anyway, here we go. So there we have it. I think I've got a pretty clean line there now. Let me see if I can. So now I think I've got a pretty clean line. I've got the screen turned around so I can see what I'm doing. I got a pretty good line there. It's pretty clean down in the groove. Got a little bit of a putty down in there, but it doesn't matter. That's gonna be sprayed black, and I think I've got plenty of putty in my groove there. That'll be all right. And now this one over here that I did, I think it's just fine the way it is. I think what I'll do is I'll just touch that with the sander, trying to stay on that same angle as the bevel. And I think we'll be good. I think we sand that off, we'll be good to go. All right, guys, I'm gonna shut it off, and then I'm gonna come back here, go get my black spray. Come back here and we'll get this thing sprayed and sanded off. We'll be right back. Okay, we're just about ready to spray this thing, but there's one more step we got to do before we spray it. If you look down in here, where's my little tool? You look down in here, and you've seen this on probably many of my videos. We have a lot of little stuff like this that we got to get out of there first, because we don't want that to come out after we've sprayed. That's a little high spot there, so I'm going to take that out. And again, I'm hoping that I'm on camera here, because I'm having to kind of do double duty with filming and working here. So But basically we want to take the stiff bristle brush and get all of that loose stuff out of the background there. But then also being conscious that this board tends to be somewhat chippy, we want to be careful not to put too much pressure on it and do anything that's going to cause something to weaken up or chip out. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to brush this a little bit better. This half is pretty much done. I'm going to go ahead and do the other half and move the board. And then I'll be right back and we'll get this thing sprayed. Alright guys, let's get this thing sprayed. So I got it on the turntable Lazy Susan thing here. And by the way, in case you guys hear some weird stuff in the background, we got kind of a construction project going on outside. Adding a little room addition to our office. And so Dad's over there kind of taking care of that and supervising that. So that's where Dad is. I'm hoping this is on camera here, because all right. So that's that. Let's set this up. Make sure this is on camera. Yeah, it's kind of on camera. All right. So this time I'm not using the ink. I'm using the Rust-Oleum. I really don't have any issues with this redwood normally bleeding or anything, so I don't think I'm going to have any issues. Well, this actually is cedar. I said redwood, but this, well, I don't know. It's so close. Sometimes this is perfect plank, and sometimes what they send me is redwood pieces, and sometimes what they send me is cedar, Western red cedar. So it's like, sometimes it's really hard to tell. So I think it's cedar though, based on the way it smelled when I cut it. But they're so close, in my estimation, on how they look and how they work. Either way, I don't think I'm gonna have many issues with bleeding unless I go crazy and spray it too heavy, which that's what I'm gonna try to avoid. All right, we're done. Let's let this thing dry, and then I'll be back in just a minute. We'll sand it off, see what she looks like. Okay, let's get this thing sanded off. We'll see what she looks like. By the way, I'm using my 4050 grit that I normally use. Let me turn this screen around so I can see whether I'm on filming yet or not. Okay, so yeah, I'm using my 4050 grit, and I sand across the grain on the back. Now I'm going to go with the grain on the front. Blow it off a little bit. Now I'll sand with the grain. now I got about 80–90% of that ink off of there. Now I'm going to go back with my 80 grit with my little Porter cable sander, and we'll take it down to a smooth surface. I like that little sander. That little Porter cable sander is so cool. Alright, let's blow it off. You guys get to see it when I see it. Not bad. Got a few little... I'm glad that didn't break. I hope it didn't break. These things are pretty fragile. You want to try to avoid what I just did, guys. Anyway, I got a few little high spots in there. I'm going to shut the camera off, and I forgot my Sharpie. I'm going to shut the camera off, go get a Sharpie, and touch that up. Be right back. Alright, so let's touch up those little white spots there. Don't have a whole lot of them, but there's a few of them there. I want to try to avoid having to re-sand. The way the light is, it's kind of hard to see. Get a different angle on it. All right. That's the thing about using a 60 for doing that kind of an operation, guys. I wanted a little bit more texture in there, so I wanted a greater angle, and that's the 60 degree. So it left more of the rough texture, but the downside of that is a lot of high spots unless you really go back and hit it hard. But I didn't want to do that because I wanted to leave as much texture as possible. So there it is. I'll set up the spray operation and we'll spray it and hopefully see that grain come alive. We'll be right back. Okay, I am using the Helmsman Clear Gloss, Helmsman Spar Urethane. It's one of the finishes that I use. Starting to use it a little bit more. So I'm just going to... Nice light coat. It's got that really neat nozzle on there. Makes a nice light coat. Good coverage. Hardly ever any issues with this these nozzles. So let's do that. Turn it over. Let's get the edge first. That's what I normally do. Get the edge all the way around. Position here. Paper. Got some breeze coming in the door here. Not moving my finish around very much, but it is the paper a little bit. All right, there it be. Let me turn that up so you guys can get a look at it. And let me adjust the camera just a little bit. There it is, you guys. Okay. So on a day like today, probably an hour or so, I'll be able to put another coat. But there it is. That is part 2 of the vertical grain perfect plank. I don't know if it's a redwood or a western red cedar, but it's one of them, and looks good. You saw the issues that I had with it, but I'm pretty happy with it. So in the description down below, or write me an email, whatever. If you want to see Vicky paint those flowers and leaves, let us know, because she had no idea I was going to say that. And now that she's at work and I'm finishing this up, I'm going to mention it again. So anyway, I'll probably hear about it. But anyway, I think those flowers would look kind of cool if they had some color to them. Anyway, let us know what you guys think, or should we leave it all wood? All right, you guys, that is it for this week. Hope everybody has a great weekend. I'm just going to leave with this thing on camera here and sign off from here. Tomorrow morning, Dad will be doing another memory lane, and then we will see you guys first thing on Monday morning for coffee and questions. Got some really cool stuff happening, so stay tuned. We got lots of great stuff coming up. We will see you guys soon. Have a great one. Bye-bye.